The ATF never explained how exactly they came to raid Bryan Malinowski, why they covered up his security camera, and why the raid ended in his death. But we might finally get some answers, as his wife has filed a huge federal lawsuit over her husband's wrongful death. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I've discussed the Malinowski raid on this channel before, which occurred in the pre-dawn hours of March 19th, 2024. During the raid, carloads of ATF agents swarmed the Little Rock Airport executive's home, broke down the door with a battering ram, and then shot and killed Malinowski in front of his wife. Maria Mayer Malinowski claims that her husband was trying to defend her and her home, thinking that the home was being broken into by a gang of thugs, because that's exactly what was happening. The entire incident lasted less than 2 minutes. The ATF's excuse? They were executing a search warrant based on a suspicion that Malinowski was, quote, engaged in the business without an FFL at local gun shows. He had no criminal record. But now, even in this lawsuit as filed, we get some extra details and a few questions answered, hopefully with more answers to come. And so, heads up, this video will be a long one, as it includes all the information we have so far on how this all got messed up. Mrs. Malinowski and her legal team are pulling out all the stops here. The lawsuit charges the ATF agents and cops present, plus the United States government, with failure to knock and announce, unlawful entry, use of excessive force, illegal detention, wrongful death, assault and battery, negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, manslaughter and negligent homicide, battery, aggravated assault, criminal mischief, and false imprisonment. The complaint is 53 pages long, and with all the extra paperwork, it takes up over 230 pages, so it's intense. But before I get into those details and all of the info here that we have to back up the allegations, this video is brought to you by Checkmate, the largest manufacturer of OEM magazines in the US. Checkmate has been supplying Americans with mags for the most popular firearm brands for decades. Each Checkmate mag is 100% developed and manufactured in the US, backed by a lifetime factory warranty to ensure superior performance, reliability, quality, fit, and finish with your favorite firearm. They are always expanding their product line, and even better, right now they are doing a big giveaway with a fancy prize package. You have until the first week of June to enter, so check out my links down in the description to see their ever-expanding lineup and learn how you can enter to win. Now, this suit lists out a bunch of case law pointing out that people need time to react in such an event, that they might not be rational when woken up in the middle of the night, or dressed, might not have heard the police announcement, or might think their home is being broken into and react in self-defense. In fact, one of the agents even said as much after the fact in referring to getting a hold of their superiors and support, a courtesy that we'll see was not afforded to Mr. Malinowski. This is pretty common sense stuff, but for some reason, the tactics never change in this case, is a perfect example. So let's dive in. 10 carloads of ATF agents showed up at the Malinowski home that morning. At 6:42 a.m., 7 ATF agents and task force officers stacked onto the front porch steps. They covered up the video doorbell camera with tape, which certainly does not sound like announcing their presence appropriately. And less than 1 minute later, the team leaders ordered agents to pry open the locked glass storm doors and break down the inner wooden doors with a battering ram to breach the entry. Less than 20 seconds later, at 6:46 a.m., Bryan crumpled to the floor, shot in the head by an ATF agent after an exchange of gunfire. According to the suit, he had scrambled out of bed and crept into the dark hall with his gun to protect himself and his wife because he thought that the people breaching his doors were intruders. He had no idea that he was under investigation or that the people breaking down the door were law enforcement because they did not properly announce themselves or knock. He'd told his wife to stay in the bedroom, but she didn't listen. She followed him into the hall, saw him get shot, and claims that it was only after Bryan fell to the floor that they were ordered to put their hands up and that the intruders announced themselves as federal agents. He died 2 days later at the age of 53. The lawsuit argues that the ATF's engage in the business rule did not apply to Mr. Malinowski, as before his death, the law required that the principal motivation behind selling guns be livelihood and profit. Instead, Mayer contends Bryan was an avid collector of many things, including guns and coins, and set up a table at the local gun show to show off his collection and occasionally buy, sell, and trade with others as a hobby. She points out his yearly salary of over $260,000 a year was his livelihood, not selling off bits of his gun and coin collection on the weekends, and thus he did not consider himself to be engaged in the business of selling firearms. And in fact, this was a gray area in which the ATF could randomly and arbitrarily decide how many sales were suddenly too many. This is a public fact and known issue with the law that has been recorded many times across many news articles which Mayer and her legal team so kindly provide. From the complaint, we know the investigation into Malinowski began in December 2023. We know the ATF began following him around, putting trackers on his car, hanging around his work, and surveilling all of his daily activities. We know 2 undercover agents interacted with him at an Arkansas gun show, during which he asserted that he was a private seller and not in need of an FFL. They knew that he worked in a secure environment and gun-free zone. They knew that he had no criminal history. They never sent him a single letter or notice about his alleged crimes or questioned him about them. They simply got a search warrant on March 6th, not an arrest warrant, to look for guns, ammo, and sales records. They provided no evidence that he might be non-compliant, violent, or would try and evade law enforcement. One agent even admitted that Malinowski was the last person I would have imagined that we would have been in an armed confrontation with. Another said they thought it would be an easy in-and-out warrant. And yet, the ATF used a dynamic entry tactic normally reserved for high-risk situations, as per the government's own rules and investigations post-Waco. In other words, it seems like they just wanted to play badass. Most importantly, the ATF's engage in the business rule did not go into effect until a month after Bryan's death. We also learned that they were set up and prepared to execute the warrant on an earlier date when they all met up in a Walmart parking lot, but it turned out that he wasn't home. They decided not to execute it that day for whatever reason. Instead, agents in charge came to the joint decision to wait until they were sure that Malinowski would be present for the search. Then they changed out some agents and canceled the briefing for the new agents on the team. Which sounds like excellent planning. According to the complaint, the agents on the porch hesitated before breaking in, and this somehow led to confusion, but were ordered to break down the door. The agent carrying the shield marked "Police" for some reason didn't enter first the way he was supposed to, and even left the shield outside, blocking the exit. The words "Police" and ATF on their uniforms were mostly covered by ballistic vests and other equipment. The order that the agents were supposed to enter got all messed up. When the agents broke in, a police officer outside turned on his siren and lights for only 1.5 seconds. It was so brief that not a single person in the cul-de-sac reported hearing it or seeing the lights. They disabled his Ring doorbell camera. They had no identifying markers. They did not ring the doorbell, did not call him on the phone despite having his phone number. They did not use a PA system to announce themselves despite it being written in their operations plan. Instead, they knocked, apparently so quietly that the agents at the back of the house couldn't even hear it, waited 4 seconds, and knocked again for a total of 19 seconds altogether before breaking down the door. None of the agents wore body cams despite a 3-year-old policy to wear them when executing search warrants, and none of the cops activated theirs despite similar policies. The only reason that we have some of these details is because when the officer turned on his lights and siren, an audio recording started automatically. Despite reporting no lights or movement in the home, the agent in charge suddenly decided, according to a statement, that they were too exposed in a quiet neighborhood cul-de-sac and had to break in. They gave no verbal warnings, no announcement, and no commands. In the dark, at the opposite end of the house, Bryan woke up, grabbed his gun, and went into the hall where he was met with a group of armed men with no markings to show they were law enforcement, and he shot at the floor, hitting one of them in the boot. Agents returned fire to Bryan's head, and as he struggled to breathe on the floor, offered no medical assistance. After the shooting, law enforcement support was slow to arrive because the agents noted it's hard to wake someone up at that hour. Meanwhile, they detained Mayer in nothing but a tank top and underwear and put her in the back of a car for several hours in 30-degree weather. They did not allow her to get clothes, her medicine, or use the bathroom, and did not allow her to ride in the ambulance with her husband. In later body cam footage, law enforcement referred to her as a prisoner. And while none of the incident was recorded on body cam footage, you can bet that they recorded her in the bathroom once they finally allowed her to use one. And after all of that, agents didn't even begin their search until 2 p.m. that afternoon. This complaint is the most detailed that we've gotten of this incident so far because despite pressure from the public and congressmen, the ATF, including Dettelbach himself, refused to comment, even during investigations by the House Judiciary Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. They could not say why the raid happened the way it did. They couldn't say why they didn't execute the warrant at his work, which is again a known gun-free zone, or pull him over to inform him on his way to or from work. Why they didn't call him, use the PA, send a letter, anything. Neither the police or the ATF have faced any accountability. And so, Mayer is demanding a full jury trial, and honestly, I hope she gets it. I am waiting for the ATF's response with bated breath, and I hope that it includes the only words that the Malinowskis heard from agents that morning before Bryan's death, and that is, "Oh shit." Now, what we should see here, if not total disbandment of the ATF, is a serious overhaul in the policies and procedures that they employ. Now, do I think that is going to happen? Honestly, no. And maybe that's pessimistic. Maybe I'm a little black-pilled here. But frankly, this behavior is too deeply entrenched in the agency as a whole and unfortunately across a lot of law enforcement organizations. Even with what Trump's doing, Doge is doing, the libertarians in the cabinet, whatever, this government has not been by the people, for the people in a very long time. And this is a perfect example of that, of the government ruling class, the government organizations, the alphabet agencies, and the tiny second-class citizens like you and me that do not get afforded the same rights, the same respect, anything, and even down to the agents' statements, recognizing that, it's hard to get people up that early in the morning before dawn. They might take a while. They might not be dressed. It might take them a bit to wake up and have their wits about them. But for some reason, that only applies to their own. And again, they did not afford that same courtesy to Mr. Malinowski and his wife. Why? Because they were just regular, everyday American citizens. The ATF and any strong arm of the government is not your friend, never has been, and never will be. That is it for this video, guys. I will definitely be keeping an eye on this one and bringing you any big and important updates. Do I have a lot of optimism here? No, but you know what? Good on her for having the balls and finding the legal team to file this suit, and hopefully something comes out of it, even if it is just a punishment for the individuals involved. Now, you guys know the drill. For all of the algorithm things, please like, share, and subscribe if you are new here. Ring that notification bell and drop a comment down below. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Please stay safe out there and happy shooting.